So this is the July 15th meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission. It's 7:02. We're calling the meeting to order. The first order of business is to review the agenda for additions, removals, or adjustments. I have none to suggest. Does anybody else have any? No. So then we will move on to administrative matters. The first item is approval of last meeting's minutes. Somebody, Tom Wallace makes a motion. Second by John. Any discussion? There's one thing I'd like to clarify is on item 3D, which discusses the conflict of interest. It states that members have acknowledged to have read, and I think to be clear, it was requested or asked that members read it. It wasn't that they acknowledged they had read it. So I'd like to ask for that change, unless anybody has an issue. Hearing nothing else, I guess everybody that's in favor of approving the minutes, say aye or raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. The next thing is the zoning administrator's report. Chris had sent out a activity log. There is some activity on that thing. Chris, I don't know if you want to kind of summarize it or have some leading questions or what?
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull it up right now. I'm not going to lie to you, because I don't have my work laptop with me. So the top 3/4 of that report is just pretty standard what's been going on. We've had a lot of building going on. As a lot of you know, up in the lower notch, Greg West has been building houses like a crazy man. I've got 3 or 4 more permits for that same development. That'll be the last of the houses up there on the right across from Fred Johnson Road. And then a lot of the other building has been sheds and porches in addition, sort of the standard fare. But near the bottom is where it becomes busy lately. Next week, the DRB has got 4 hearings. One is Greg Butler is subdividing his land on Devon Lane into another lot for another building lot. Martin and Kathleen, who own Martin's Hardware, where the old community garden is, they are subdividing that green parcel into 3 building lots. We've got a 2-lot subdivision up in the lower notch. The Spaldings are giving a small chunk of their land to one of their children. And the 4th one is Chris Acker subdividing a chunk he has down in Hewitt Road into 3 parcels, with the intention of building a new shop for Acre Excavating and Acre Waste Management. So those are all things that are in front of the DRB. Recent activity for the DRB has been Stony Hill has been approved for their business park out behind the fire station. The conditional use permit is for light industrial, and the site plan was approved for 3 buildings back there. The Willow Well is another one. They're working with John Turner, who lives down off South 116 off Harvey Road. Willowwell, if you aren't aware, is an outdoor-based preschool program that was in Moncton, where they tore down the barn at the top of Meter Hill. Since then, they've been bouncing around locations for a couple of years. They're now, John Turner has now offered them the use of his property, and they are potentially they're currently gonna use the yurt that he used to live in, that he has since moved into the home that he built. And potentially, if this is a success, they actually are looking at building a structure for a long-term preschool program down in that area. The other one that's on the radar that was in the Addison a couple weeks ago is the housing project next to the fire station. That'll be 20 rental units spread over 3 to 4 buildings. I can't remember the exact number. There's a whole bunch of land jockeying that needs to go on for that to take place. They don't have enough land for the density requirements, so they're working with the town to acquire about 3.5 acres down over the bank on West Street down to the river. That would allow them to utilize that to meet their density requirements.
Hey, Chris, is that still pending approval on those changes from the previously approved plan for that?
Yeah, they're actually they're going to leave the previous PUD in place, and because it's going to be under single ownership and basically just be multifamily housing, Evernorth is building it, and I think we'll own it, and Addison County Community Trust will be managing it, or they may own it. One of the two is going to own it. So it's actually just going to be a conditional use permit for a multifamily development, because there's no subdivision involved, because it's a single ownership. So those are the biggies that are going on right now. It's been, Bristol's rocking right now as far as development goes. Any questions?
Well, I hear crickets, so I
Nice.
guess everybody's quite satisfied with your very thorough review.
Do you want to touch base on our conversations with Addison County Regional, or are you going to cover that? That's later on your agenda, right?
That's actually, well, I was going to put that into discussion status of ACRP review, which is the next item underneath administrative matters. So I don't know if you want to take that off. You've been the front coordinator on that.
Sure. Let me just pull up Adam's emails. So as we all know, the town plan that this group worked very hard on was approved by the voters. And the last phase of it, which we forgot to do last time, is get approval from Addison County Regional Planning that our plan meets their vision as well. And to do that, they need to hold a public hearing. And been working with Adam, and they're shooting for the second meeting in July 21st, I believe. I'm pulling it up right now.
That would be the third Tuesday, right?
Oh, third, yeah. So it'd be July 20th. And per Adam, because I was concerned what exactly, I mean, I've sat through these for a few other towns. A contingent of Addison County Regional comes to the meeting. The public hearing, if anyone shows up, the public can ask questions around the plan and how it ties to the county vision. They then take any testimony and I think they vote that evening. If not, they have a vote at their next meeting, but I believe it's at that meeting they'll actually have a vote. But as far as the requirements of this board, for Adam, it was for the board to be there, be prepared with the plan, and to answer what few questions do come up. It's really, this is not a gotcha hearing by any means. They've already read the plan. The fact that they helped us write it helps us tremendously. So I think you guys will be in a great shape for that hearing.
And this will be, I'm getting a little confused on the makeup of the meeting. This will be their local government committee plus their energy committee, as I understand it. And will they be there, the whole committee be there, or will it be just a delegate?
Usually it's just a delegation. It's usually like 5 of their members are there. It's a combination of their regular board and their energy folks. These will discuss both plans since
Okay.
they're tied.
So, and that will, if you look at further down on the agenda, you will notice that there was a question mark if we'd have a July meeting, but with this activity coming up, it makes sense to not delay it and have a July meeting, which may be one topic, unless anybody wants to really make it a heavy meeting. So that will be the planning for that, the July meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Nice.
Okay, good explanation, Chris. The next item is discussion of in-person meetings with since this agenda is made, there's been a few things that have happened that weren't necessarily anticipated. I was thinking I would be reporting out the select board stance, but since the governor has lifted restrictions, it's a different game, and effectively starting tomorrow, 12:01 tomorrow, there needs to be a public function, in-person public function in meetings. And my understanding is the select board is considering hybrid meetings, and they're still leaning that way, but I'm not sure they're totally set up to do that. And then they're still considering what restrictions, if any, they would have within the building. So this July meeting will probably be our first meeting to return back to an in-person situation. And we probably have the distinction of being the last town function to have a totally Zoom meeting on the eve that all this will be happening. I know the town, one thing they're considering is there's this gadget called an owl that will facilitate a hybrid meeting. It's set on a table or on a tripod, and it can see and sense 360 degrees around the room, and is advertised to pick up voice and direct and understand the direction of the voice within 18 feet of it. So if it works as advertised, it might be a pretty nifty solution if the select board does desire to go ahead with hybrid meetings. Is there any comments or on that? I don't have a whole lot more information, but we could. No, crickets. Okay. There's nothing to bring up as far as.
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
There we go. No, I have it on good authority that the town is definitely going to purchase one of the owls, and they will be testing it out. It's great. It's gonna get an insider there. So yeah, they are going to be doing that. So it'll be available for other departments to use as well. So
yeah. Thank you. And thank your inside source. Okay, miscellaneous correspondence. I have nothing to add this month on that. And we do have the little ticker. We still have one open position right now. If there's one last call for any discussion on any of those items. No. So the next item on the agenda is to basically approve the, as an action item, to consider approval of the policies and changes that we made at the last meeting being our annual meeting for Acrp. So I'll just open it up for a motion for accepting the document as accurate. That's John makes the motion. Any second? Tom seconds it. Is there any discussion about the accuracy of the document? No, everybody's happy with it? Okay, all those that are for approving the changes as being accurate, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? So it carries unanimously. Under continuing business, the next item, I'm having a little bit of a senior moment here. I can't remember. Item 8 is to discuss the communication out of the implementation plan items. I thought we had talked about that at the last meeting, but we may not have. So basically, the select board has reviewed it. They are recognizing that some of the action items are ongoing activities with them, and there are some that will require a certain amount of work. The Conservation Commission looked at it and delved into it and actually started using the spreadsheet for documentation of their progress, if you will, or what their status is of each one of their tasks. And I've sort of made a priority to work on park management plans as part of that whole activity. The Energy Committee has read it and has made the comment there's no suggestions. So I would conclude that that's acceptance of not only the document, but the tasks and understanding of the tasks. So I think that's where that stands as far as that whole outlay and draft spreadsheet summary to the various groups as to their responsibilities. Does anybody have any comments, concerns, statements on any of that information? Okay. I don't know if this is the right order or not, but anyway, there's going to be an ask for an action at the end of this section. But the other thing that was talked about at the last meeting was some input from the select board. And I did sit with the select board last night and had a really good conversation with them. And I sent out, and I don't know if, hopefully everybody's seen it, and hopefully people have looked at it a little bit, but there's, I did send out a summary of that conversation. And it was informal, so some of the comments were by a board member, not necessarily. All these comments are not actually select board actions, if you will, or statements. There's some, it's a variety of discussions of individuals. Sometimes it was an individual making a comment and then we moved on, and then other times there was something brought up that foddered a little discussion, or you could see heads nod or something when those comments were made. And just to highlight a few things, one of the first things that came out was the exposure, I guess you could say, that the select board gets from primarily zoning, but you could also envelop that in planning issues. People that are in certain districts that aren't allowed things, but they have been done historically in the past. Been select board years, so there was some discussion about that, and that's a great thing to keep in mind as we review the URD. Is, you know, what restrictions have we put on landowners that are inconsistent with historical development that's going to drive them to bend ears at the town office, if you will. And then the other hot button as far as those types of things was speed control and how to manage vehicles. And I'm not sure what we do or where we go with it. There was an individual that was complaining about truck traffic in the notch just prior to this. So it is something that the select board hears a lot. And so it's kind of like, those are the things that they see as issues with zoning, whether they truly are or not. You know, we leave that up for debate as we walk down that path.
Hey, Kevin,
Yeah.
sorry to interject, but were there specific examples given as far as the regs versus historic use, or what's been done in the past versus what the current regs are, just so that's documented, or was that a general comment?
It was general. They did go on to talk about density bonuses with housing and stuff. So I don't know if there's some interconnection there with restrictions potentially in the village or something, or where I don't really know. But, you know, like I said, a lot of this is reaction to, you know, if people as they are dissatisfied tend to go up the food chain, if you will, too. So, and you know, it's something good to discuss and keep in mind as we develop those URDs or revisit those URDs.
It's just kind of, I was wondering, because it's kind of hard to know what the issues are if you don't know what the issues are, you know. So
Yep. And you know, as we get to that point, maybe we have some more finite conversations with, you know, to hear what the perspective is or what the history is concerned. But you know, it was, yes, Tom.
You had a phrase in there I'm not familiar with. Is density bonus? What is that?
So depending on, probably Chris can explain this a whole lot better, but basically you would, if you are in a situation where you can pitch a plan that's going to be overall beneficial, you could like reduce lot sizes by a percentage or something, you know, so that you end up avoiding sprawl and making it easier to build out. I mean, can you embellish on that a little bit, Chris?
Yeah, I can give, so when we talk about density, if the example I use all the time is if you have 20 acres of land, if you're in the 5-acre zoning, you can only build 4 houses. If you're in half-acre zoning, you could do 40 houses in that same 20 acres. But where the density bonus comes in, towns use it creatively, sometimes to encourage multifamily homes, to encourage affordable housing. So if you're willing to build one of the units in your subdivision you're building to meet affordable housing standards, you then could build one additional traditionally priced home. I want to say it's Richmond actually can give you density bonuses if you generate parking spaces, because they have such a parking shortage in their town. So all it means is that by doing these things, you can add a few more houses or dwelling units, actually is the right term, to your project by meeting some additional criteria. Does that help?
Thank you. So they talked about, and they made it pretty clear that they'd like the planning commission to coordinate or oversee the implementation plan and the spreadsheets, as if you will, that have been passed out, which sort of makes sense, I guess. Talking a little bit about their involvement, they were quick to say they're not planners, and that while they want to understand what the planning commission is doing, they don't want to be involved or caught up in the detail work of it. So it will remain as this, and we had a little bit of a discussion last month about this, a little bit somewhat autonomous organization serving the select board at their pleasure by appointments and keeping them informed. When we talked a little bit about housing. That's where the density bonus comment came up. There was a little bit of discussion about road standards and, as the Mount A Unified District looks at repurposing buildings, if that would affect or how that would affect commercial and business space potentially in the town. We talked a little bit about work environments, commercial, industrial, retail. I don't recall a lot of discussion about retail, but any sort of business, they were quick to point out that any sort of housing expansion, if you will, or change needs to have a requisite change in business opportunities to support the additional housing in the area. And they also talked quite a bit about the fit of the businesses as opposed to having standardized industrial parks or something like that. Would the business fit within the existing development of the area? And the example one of the individuals used was Hillside. There's a Hillside Manufacturers Gray Kuzno's operation. It is a larger Butler building, but it's pretty innocuous, and that could be in a lot of different places as opposed to having it limited to an industrial park, if you will. So there was a lot of discussion about that. There was a caution about the need to protect ag land along with that, but there was a lot of discussion about that complement of housing and business functions to provide a place for people to work in the town. The other thing that's worth highlighting is at the end of the conversation, we talk a little bit about communications, and we settled on a quarterly report out, if you will, to the board. They just barely started a department head roundtable, if you will. So I think they're looking to kind of build on that potentially. And it just lended itself to the question of how do we interact or should be interacting with the select board. And then of course, Michelle Purley has been our liaison right along. And I have been trying to copy her or email her on some behind the scenes type things with regards to the planning commission. And she was appreciative of that. And it was, pretty much unanimous that kind of conversation should be going on in the interim between these more formal quarterly reports. So like I said, it was a pretty good meeting, very full informational meeting. I think hopefully that solves or answers a lot of the hesitancy that some of us have been having, particularly some of the newer members as to, what our role in the whole process is. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions or comments with that commentary.
My only thing is that if we could get some more input on some of those comments, like about things that might need to be addressed, so we know what to be watching out for, that would be most helpful.
Yeah, that's a great thing to keep in the back of our mind as we particularly as we look at DR, the URDs, to kind of go back and poke at that a little bit. But it was a, obviously they're not, studying the regs and that sort of thing. And it was a very high level meeting, and certain amount of exposure to what they get accosted with, if you will. Sometimes I think, is that right? That may not be the right word. Involved with. So
I don't know, it feels like you're being accosted when you're in the grocery store and all of a sudden somebody angry shows up and wants to pin you almost against the produce aisle and wants to have a discussion.
Yeah. It depends on if they're discussions with their mouth or their hands.
Sometimes you have to wonder if it's not going to turn to hands. It's like, oh my God.
I can imagine. Okay, so if that's a great point, Rob, and something we need to keep in mind. The other thing, and it was a passing comment, I think, by Valerie, was there was some we had during the plan, when we were working on the town plan, there was some discussions about having community input, community awareness, if you will, and that was brought up that now that COVID is on its way out, in theory, that it would be good to have some of that activity going on as well. So I guess if we're all set with that one, the next item under continuing business is to take action on the format that we would like to continue communicating out the action items of the implementation plan. We've got a set of spreadsheets laid out. We've had a few discussions, and there was 3 or 4 comments based on the previous discussion, and I've either rectified them or realized that they were covered, and I just didn't remember how they were covered. One was ranking and color coding. I mean, you can color code any box that you can edit, and there was a couple other ones like, I put grid lines in so you can see grid lines through the shading, and there was something else I can't remember. So that work has been done. I did attach them, and I think probably should have a motion to adopt and then discuss.
Kevin, is this something that needs to be formalized in that way? Or is it something that we can run with as a administrative matter, sort of?
I guess I'm feeling my way here, and I'm maybe going overboard with a formal adoption. I guess I don't have an issue of that if we have an understanding that we're going to use these things on a go forward basis. I haven't heard any issues from the people that we've assigned tasks and have been have sent them out to. So I mean, it seems to be accepted, and maybe if you're all comfortable with that, I'm not hung up on having a formal action on it, but since it's in the agenda, I guess we should have an action to table it if we don't want to accept it. Tom?
And, the less rigid we can be, the better. I'd say let's try it informally in a loose way. If we have a problem, we can change it.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Make it a motion.
Lloyd, the second. Okay, any more discussion? No. So the motion is to set aside the formal adoption and utilize the sheets. Everybody in favor of that, please raise your hand, whatever, state your name. Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, so that's that. Moving on to new business. When I set up this agenda, I was like, let's not do anything in July. But we do have the regional planning public hearing, I guess you'd call it, in process. So we'll be developing an agenda, and my intent is to keep it light and basically focus on that public hearing, and then we'll come back in August and start thinking about the implementation activities. Is there any yes, no's, maybes? Tom?
Yeah, that's good. Just kind of clarify for me, this meeting with the county, is that where we're included with them? We'll have a kind of a joint Zoom meeting? Is that how it works?
It'll actually be in person.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the expectation is the full board, it will be a full board public meeting for the Bristol Planning Commission, and they will join us. Do they do any process to warn it or anything, or they just they do it as well?
Yep, they actually take care of the warning. I asked Adam that. They take care of all
Okay,
the formality on the hearing.
so we just
Is that
got
like-
to
it's like a Holly Hall sort of thing?
Yep.
anything else?
I mean, the other two that I've sat through, Tom, they actually held them just in their usual meeting space because honestly, not a lot of public usually shows up to these things.
Well, it's offered.
Yeah, so the seating down in the basement of Holly Hall in the boardroom should be adequate. If all of a sudden 30 people show up, we can move it upstairs very quickly, so.
Okay. Anything else on the July meeting? And that'll be the 20th. That'll be the third Thursday. And then I guess, I don't know if I've been explicit about this, but when the Planning Commission was doing quasi-judicial hearings and whatnot, they met, their core meeting was on the 3rd, and then they met the first Tuesday as required for hearings. And then, of course, when we were doing the town plan, we utilized both of those weeks. But now that we're back into an extended planning period, my thought was we would use the 3rd Tuesday as our normal meeting and not consider meeting the first Tuesday unless there were some extenuating circumstances once we got into development, or the development regs or something like that.
Could I just request you actually utilize your first Tuesday? It's purely a scheduling thing for me. I have like 3 conflicts tonight and I have to pick and choose meetings, but on the first Tuesday, I'm actually free, so.
Okay, so anybody have an issue with that? Okay, so the July meeting will be the 3rd because we've sort of set it up that way.
Yes,
And then when we go to the August meeting, we will meet on the first Tuesday.
that'd be great.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
I have school board meetings the 2nd and 4th, so the planning commission meshes perfectly, not that that's anybody's problem or concern, but okay. So we will do that. The next item, if we're all done with that one, is public comment. Is there any?
One question.
Oh,
Question.
sure, go ahead.
Can you repeat those dates again, please?
So the public hearing with regional planning will be July 20th. And then our next regular meeting, I guess you could call it, would be the first Tuesday in August. And I'm not sure exactly what day that is.
3rd.
8/3.
Yep.
Okay. And we will stay with the 7 o'clock time frame. Okay, so at this point, we'll entertain any public comment if there is. That's you, Jim.
That was it, you, Jim. You're the only public here, man.
The only thing is, as I said last night, it'd be good to start pushing some of the properties, like down at the Lathrop property down in 116. There's still room for more development down there, I guess, right? We should try to solicit some kind of businesses to come in. Start actively soliciting them. We do need it, like they said last night, you can have all this affordable housing. If there's no place for them to work, what good is it? I know you guys are on top of that. Good job otherwise.
Thank you. So with that,
I do have one question.
sure.
It's in terms of grants and funds available for some of these studies, stuff that we have on our plate coming up through our implementation table. Is there someone that actively watches out for when those grants and loans or whatever are released, or are we hoping that somebody catches it?
Myself and Valerie are on a mailing list for like the regional planning grants. And we get emails from Addison County Regional as well for like some of the development grants that are out there. So there's nobody really formally watching it, but I see a lot of it come through. And we've budgeted, you do have a budget of a few grand every year for studies or contract or whatever. If there's some sort of planning that you need to do, that it's a small budget, but there are some dollars out there that we can utilize to get some of this stuff done.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering because I know some of these studies can blow up in a hurry, and then there's all your budget for a year or two in one item. So
Yeah, that makes me nervous a little bit. I agree, Rob. You know, a study is not a few $1,000s, but we probably need to be more cognizant of it. But I've been thinking that the regional planning would be a clearinghouse for that stuff, but that may or may not be so, according to Chris.
Yeah, they do. They send out, like, we get emails from them on a regular basis as grants come open, and summary of them and sort of the criteria summary, so you can decide if you want to dig deeper into it. So myself and Valerie get those on a regular basis.
Okay. That answer help you out, Rob? Okay. So the next item is to have a motion to adjourn. Consider a motion. Somebody.
make a motion to adjourn.
That's Rob, and second by John. Anybody want to talk about it? No? Everybody in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Great. Anybody opposed? No, unanimous. Great. Well, thank you all. You got 15 minutes back.
Nice.